Nintendo!
Hey everyone, welcome back with Bino Mac. Today we are continuing our playthrough of World of Light, and I have already beaten this game, so if you're wondering why, that's why I can travel to any area, because I already have the spirits associated with them. If you're just curious as well, this is Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, if you, you know, for whatever reason you didn't know that. World of Light mode. That said, this is just a casual run, and I'm not trying to impress anyone. Last episode I described my story with the Nintendo Switch. You know, all the hype surrounding it at the time. It was special to me because of all the people I got to experience it with. It helped shape some decision making for me as well. My brother, Topher, obviously was hyped about every aspect and told me about all these great games to get. I was I was naive in thinking that since my brother was so excited, I would like these games as well, you know, no matter what. I mean, how could I not? You know, he was so excited. He was telling me how awesome these games were gonna be. So I found out more about what games I liked and didn't like, and I'm more selective about the games I purchase, especially since I moved, so there isn't too much reason to play like couch multiplayer games, even though I do, you know, visit my home every now and then and reunite with the families, as they say. But I still do try to play online with, you know, my brothers, Super Lou 64 and Alpha C. Me and Raquel stay in touch pretty often and have been playing Monster Hunter on Switch, but he is currently trying to upgrade his degree, so between that and having a family, it's difficult for him. Even though we live in different parts of the country, though, I mean, we can still count on each other, though. So, once again, I'm, you know, rubbing my great friendship in your guys' face. Raquel is also the one who bought me one of my favorite games of all time, which is Fire Emblem Three Houses. It's either that or, you know, Paper Mario 64. It's kind of a toss-up of which one I enjoy better. I've definitely replayed Paper Mario 64 a lot more. I don't think I've ever even replayed Fire Emblem Three Houses, but I remember spending countless hours playing Three Houses, which is ironic considering I honestly thought the game looked stupid at the time, and I thought it was just like a weird Hogwarts ripoff, you know, with the school and the way some of the characters looked. Plus, I heard all the weird dating sim stuff the Fire Emblem series was known for at the time, so I wasn't really too interested, and I thought the characters kind of looked gay, you know, like Claude and stuff like that. I just thought they looked really lame. I even named my character Slag because I literally just didn't expect it to be good, but my opinion quickly changed as I was heavily invested in its world. So, to put a little bow on this dialogue, the Switch was a period of innocence for me that was broken from playing games I didn't like that others swore were like the greatest in their entire series. The friends I had to experience the Switch with have all moved on, and I've moved away from my home, so the excitement from the groups is no longer there. Plus, after playing Fire Emblem Three Houses, I mean, I just can't imagine being so pleasantly surprised by a game like that again, but honestly, that one's probably just me being in the wrong headspace for that kind of stuff. So many memories, though. Great times, some poop games, great games that feel like the best in their respective series, and overhyped games that were advertised to be the best in their respective series, but ended up just being titles I just couldn't be invested in. That's me and my saga with the Nintendo Switch, so I plan on playing my favorite titles in the future after Smash Bros. Ultimate, but I also plan on, trying out, Double Dragon Gaiden soon, too, recommended by, my #1 viewer, Rich Nero Nightwing 88, or RD Pruett 88, I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that right. I mean, he hasn't corrected me. Maybe it's too much work, though, to do it. Because I probably would still get it wrong anyway, but either way, he's my #1 viewer here, checking out all my videos on this channel and stuff, so I figure, if I can get this stuff to work out well, why can't I, play for the future, will more than likely take place after my playthrough of Mortal Kombat Deception though, but thanks for listening to my spiel here. If, you know, hopefully you were all entertained at least, but like I said, last video, this was just me capturing my thoughts and memories of the Switch now that this era is pretty much over, so, you know, I can look back, you know, later in life and remember the good times and bad times of this period of my life. And if you are interested in, you know, checking out, you know, hearing what I have to say when it comes to that stuff, you know, my experiences with the Switch, my friends groups at the time, and, you know, what the Switch means to me and stuff like that, you know, the first episode's going to be in the description if you want to check that out. If not, you know, that's cool. But now we're going to look into some of the cut content from the Cutting Room 4 website from both Smash Wii U/3DS and then, you know, Ultimate. The links to both web pages will be available in the description below. But with that said, you know, I'll look over this and point out the, you know, some of the cool details here. And we're going to start with Smash for Wii U. Technically the 5th installment, but, you know, it's the main one, so I figured there'd be a lot more, like, things that were missing or changed in this particular iteration. So, you know, there's some, obviously, the basic stuff. I mean, there's the logos, you know, the unused animations for some characters that just kind of look like they're spazzing out. So unused moves in a lot of cases. There's unused model features and stuff like that. And, you know, just minor differences to, like, the text of, like, the trophies between English and Japanese and version differences and stuff like that. There's some unused themes, which I'm not going to really play because obviously this is just not the type of video for that kind of format. But there's let's see here. There's not too much interesting if I'm being honest on this particular case. So yeah, there's just a bunch of music. Apparently there's rounds, which I guess would have been used for turning mode. So there's round 1, 2, 3, 4, and final round. But I guess it wasn't added until later on in the game. Good Lord, there's a lot of audio stuff left over. Including ones for, you know, win animations, final smashes, that sort of stuff. There's even like a leftover sound for when Sheik would appear in Brawl. And obviously, you know, Smash for Wii U was, like, I think the first game in which Sheik finally became her own character. There's some unused custom moves, because if you remember in Smash for Wii U, that was a thing. You know, I think each special move for all the characters had, like, 3 variations that you could have. Apparently they were called custom moves, but really they were just like, you know, yes, you can customize it and, you know, your characters and, you know, choose which, I guess, build you want to have with these moves in particular. I thought it was kind of annoying more than anything. And it kind of, like, but they definitely had some really cool variations of these specific moves. But I don't even think they came back in Ultimate, probably because of just the sheer size of the roster. But apparently Mario was allegedly supposed to get an alternate version of the Flood, which would deal electric damage. That sounds interesting. I wonder how that would have happened, because the Flood, I mean, it's pretty cool for, like, you know, making sure people don't get back on the stage. But other than that, like, I would have liked something that would have actually damaged the characters. So there's also various up specials like Ike's Ether or King DDD's Super DDD Jump. Originally had a variant where they would fall to the ground slower. Interesting. It is unknown if those versions really would deal no damage, or if it's just a case of missing data. So apparently if you do apply this, it's not going to do any damage. My guess is it probably would have just done less damage, but that said, I don't know, I think that would be really cool because it would really help you get back onto the stage a lot easier. That was kind of the big issue for those things. Most of the third variants of projectile specials, like most of Mega Man specials or Bowser Jr.'s neutral special, do not spawn projectiles. Probably just something that wasn't finished. In the case of these examples, this is an important fact because these specials do have variants where the projectile uses a completely different model, like Mega Man's Metal Blade, Hyper Bomb, Shadow Blade, or Bowser Jr.'s Cannonball being replaced with a small tornado. Palutena's basic movement gets corrupted completely, so it's unknown how much has been done for her. The third variant of Nessa's BK Thunder strangely crashes the game. That's the only special move variant used by a non-DLC character that does such a thing. Alright, so definitely a lot of unfinished and planned things, but that's just how it goes with any game, you know, like I've said in the past. So much stuff just, you know, that want to be added that just can't make it because there's not enough time, and, you know, there's always, for as perfect as some people say games are and stuff like that, there's always things that could be improved upon it, and, you know, ideas that the developers have that just never come to fruition. So it's always fun to speculate on what could be and stuff like that. For me, there's no game worse that I feel like we almost kind of got robbed of a little bit, and it's a very popular one, was Budokai 3, with the fact that we could have had a Dragon Universe mode for every single character and what-if stories and everything like that, and it's just unfortunately one of those things where they didn't get enough time for it, but it's just so crazy to see all the voice lines and all that stuff. But I've already talked about that at length in my Dragon Ball Z Budokai 3 video, so if you're interested, check those out. But Lucas, a sour spot hitbox for Lucas' forward aerial attack exists in memory. Maybe 100% honest, I don't even know what a sour spot hitbox is, but that's what it says. But it is automatically disabled the same time it appears, so cannot be activated under normal circumstances. I'm not gonna lie, it's not exactly me. I'm reading exactly what it says, so you know, I'm not trying to be a dick, but I'm not always great with my grammar, but you know, that's just what you get when you get like a Wikipedia or a Wikia. The hitbox deals 6% and uses the weak punch sound effect used for a number of other attacks in the game. Olimar, bizarrely, Olimar's entrance animation has a hitbox. That is kind of weird, although only the yellow Pikmin does damage. The hitbox also only appears if a custom down special is equipped. Why this is the case is unknown, since Olimar does not touch anybody during his entrance animation. The hitbox has electric properties and deals 16%. I don't know, maybe it was some weird Easter egg or something like that. Or maybe it's just something like he comes in and like it's just supposed to be an effect on the character, and so they just put like a hitbox or reuse some sort of move animation, and it just happened to have a hitbox still or attached to it or something like that, and that's why that's still there. That's the only thing I can think of. Unused stage icons. Yeah, there's just a bunch of different versions of the Miiverse stages. Bunch of development text, but yeah, I'm not really interested in that or build dates or anything like that. Some dummy textures. Empty 3DS stages. Directories for 2 stages from the 3DS version are present with the rest of the stages. The Mushroomy Kingdom and 3D Land. The only file remaining in each directory is the item parameter file. So I'm guessing from that they're essentially saying that a good chunk, they were probably planning at some point to have all the stages from the 3DS version be in the Wii, Smash for Wii U version, but my guess is that they probably wanted to have some sort of differences, a lot of differences from, you know, like the 3DS and the Wii U version, so that way, you know, players, it's not just literally playing on you know, handheld being the only difference and stuff like that. So that's just kind of my assumption. That said, I mean, I think they also didn't want to have like one version be completely inferior. I can't remember, I think it was just the 3DS version where they couldn't handle the ice climbers. I think they said that the Wii U version could have, even an 8-player Smash. So I mean, once again, I mean, it's just kind of weird that if they wanted to make these games so different, why not just add the ice climbers there too on the Wii U version, stuff like that, you know? If they're not going to have all the stages that are the same and different modes and stuff like that. There's some unused boss character art. Apparently some of them are the viruses. Out of all the unused boss character art, these are the most interesting. The virus characters from the Dr. Mario series were apparently set to appear as bosses for a scrapped Dr. Mario themed stage, which was sadly cut and left the dock with no place to call home. The viruses do appear as a trophy, however, and this art does reuse a render. That's pretty interesting to me, because obviously he didn't have one in Melee, and I have heard a few times that they wanted to give like Dr. Mario like a new stage or something like that so he can properly represent his own stage. You know, obviously like Yoshi has his own stages. Donkey Kong, I mean, that's a much bigger series that has their own stages, of course, too. Luigi's Mansion, for example, being a stage represents Luigi. WarioWare Inc. has his own, I think, 2 stages. So obviously it's kind of interesting that out of all the characters in the Mario universe to not have their own stages, it would be Dr. Mario. And you can even make an argument for like maybe the next Smash style they should put in like a Peach arena, you know, to represent you know, that new one that came out recently. I think it's like Princess Peach like Showtime or something like that. That would be really cool if like the stage was like you're on a stage and then the background's just various, you know, themes going on in the background to kind of represent that game. I think that'd be pretty cool. But it'd also be pretty cool to have Dr. Mario stage, since, you know, he's one of my go-tos. He's probably my number 2 or 3 guy, honestly. But yeah, I'm also interested just because, like, obviously the viruses were supposed to be bosses, and, you know, it probably would have made the stage pretty annoying, but it also has to make me wonder, like, what was planned? What were the viruses going to do? What was the stage going to be like? Was it going to be like kind of like the actual puzzle game in which you're fighting in like the puzzle area? Was it going to be just like a stage based around the puzzle area, and it was going to be kind of like you know, like the backgrounds you would see in like Dr. Mario 64 or something like that? You know what I mean? And then like, or maybe one would be like you're fighting on the puzzle area and like, you know, things are coming down at the same time and you have to avoid the viruses to, you know, avoid taking damage. You know, I think that'd be pretty cool. Maybe that, I don't know, maybe they just really didn't have a solid idea of what they wanted, and that's why, you know, the Dr. Mario stage was cut. But then again, maybe they just didn't have time, kind of like Arcadia, the Fire Emblem stage in Smash Bros. Melee being cancelled. Within the files for the character select screen are the bosses. What use they exactly serve during development is a mystery. Metalface seems to be in a T-pose. And all of the Master Core forms are present, including the core itself. These kind of portraits, excluding Master Shadow and Master Fortress, would later appear as spirits in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Icons for the in-game health, Jesus Christ, that sounds like such a moron. Try to read these things. I swear to God I can read. Icons for the in-game health HUD. The other bosses use cropped versions of the portraits above, but these 3 are of interest. Master Core's icons are used in the 3DS version, but are heavily obscured due to the swarm covering the lower screen. So these are just icons for, I believe, Metalface and, you know, just more of the Master Core pictures. Like I said, I mean, you can check them out and stuff like that in the description below if you're interested. Stock icons go along nicely with the respective enemies. KOing Meta Ridley and Pyrosphere will simply have him revert to his normal form, therefore making use of his default Brawl stock icon for some reason. Meta Ridley doesn't even have any other graphics relating to it, unlike regular Ridley, most likely a contributor to why this icon became unused. Getting KO credit for defeating Metalface was a feature cut late in the game, as a tip exists stating that whoever finishes him off gets credit for the kill. Virus's placeholder icon uses an early version of Kirby's icon where he has his mouth open, but in the final he is simply smiling. There also exist some Mii heads, one for each gender, a leftover from the 3DS version E3 demo. Apparently there was also just nameplates to go for all these boss characters as well. There's some extra trophy categories. There are 4 trophy categories that would probably appear in the series order. There's Ice Climbers, Touch Generations, I don't even know what the hell that is, Nintendog, and Tamagotchi Life, which makes sense for most of those. Once again, I have no idea what the hell Touch Generations is. I don't think I want to know, honestly, but you know, Ice Climbers and Nintendogs and Tamagotchi Life, those are all pretty big properties, especially at the time. Unused masterpieces, so all files inside contain game logos that is seen in game. Contains what appears to be a placeholder for the original Super Smash Bros., as all other Masterpiece games have their original logo used. The Masterpiece ROM files are placed in the soft folder of the data folder and have 3 folders inside them, which represent the Game Boy, NES, and SNES respectively, as there is no folder for the N64, which most likely would have been labeled as NUS. Okay, I don't really understand why it wouldn't just be labeled as N64. This shows that this icon is the only remnant left of the demo. So, if you're not sure, Masterpieces, they started in Brawl, and it sounds like they carried over into Wii U, and they were essentially just like minute-long demos or something of like the various games that they would have on the virtual console at the time that players could play and, you know, essentially, once again, test out. They weren't very good because obviously you didn't get like a minute in Super Mario Bros. Is not enough to tell like, hey, is this something I'd like to play? Like, give the players like 5 minutes or something, right? Like they did that with Ocarina of Time, and still, you know, all the dialogue that has to be skipped in Brawl to eventually start playing the game, and you get like 1 or 2 minutes of playing it and stuff like that. You know, it's pretty much, it's practically a useless feature, you know what I mean? But I mean, it was cool because like I didn't even realize they were supposed to be demos for the virtual console or anything like that as a kid growing up. I just thought they were like, you know, demos of things that I could never experience for myself personally. But I don't know, I learned about the virtual console way too late, and I was never able to take advantage of it, unfortunately. So there's also a logo for the NES Fire Emblem, Shadow Dragon and the Blade of Light. And apparently it only exists in the Japanese version of the game, which makes sense because it was never translated until, I think, geez, was it like 3 or 4 years ago? They like released it in a translated version that you could buy for like $7. And I think it's one of those annoying ass things Nintendo did where it's like, hey, we're re-releasing this game for you, but you can only buy it for a limited time, you know, just like the 3D All-Stars thing. Like, what a lame thing to do. I never really understood that, you know. Why is it, you know, you have to have this time release? Of course, like, it works for them because it's like, oh, you gotta have that FOMO kind of thing, you know, fear of missing out that you give to your audience. And I think that's just kind of really lame, to be honest. I'll give it 100% credit though, it worked on me at the time, right? I have 3D All-Stars and Shadow Dragon. I haven't even played them really that much. Which, I don't know, that might change for the channel and stuff like that, and I can experience all those games for the first time, but I don't know. I think like the NES sprites are just a little too limiting for me when it came to Shadow Dragon. I was actually pretty excited to play it, and I just seen how old tech it looked, and I thought like, yeah, I get it NES, but I thought it would have looked at least a little bit better. And the issue is it's just, it looks so bad, I just have no idea what the hell's going on, right? Because I've seen like the Game Boy versions of those games, and I thought, oh, well, it looks just like that, you know, no big deal. It looks pretty poop. So I'll just be honest with you though. But like, it would be pretty cool to try it out and play it and stuff like that. And it would probably just be a lot of trial and error, to be honest. But I got the game. I already paid my $7 for it, so I might as well at least get some enjoyment out of it and, you know, upload it to the internet and probably embarrass myself and get my ass kicked. Because as much as I love Fire Emblem, I'm not always the best at it. You know, a lot of numbers for me to keep track of. If I'm being, you know, personally honest with you guys. But I love the stories of Fire Emblem and stuff like that. That's what it got, you know, gets me wrapped into. There's also some unused All-Star preview images. Doesn't seem too interested. Unused stage features. Alright, here we go. Stages often contain much more than what can be seen with the standard camera, and the background features are surprisingly detailed. So there actually is, you know, a video on YouTube in which someone goes over it, and I'm assuming they like go all over the map, right? Like go into the background and all that sort of stuff, and see things that you off to the side of the stage that you could probably never see. So kind of like if you ever seen Boundary Break by that She Says guy, something similar to that. I like a lot of his Boundary Break videos and stuff like that. I think he does a really good job with those. While much of this is off-screen level geometry, it's technically still visible in reflections. Things like the back of buildings and the examples below can be seen with the camera hacking or the Warp Star camera glitch. I don't know what that is, but sounds pretty cool. In the Guar Plains, part of the mountain on the left side of the stage continues under the ground, impossible to see in normal gameplay. One of the stage's formations strangely has a sticker texture hidden in one of the platforms. Once again, impossible to see in normal gameplay, and that's on the gamer stage. Yeah, I mean, honestly, that one's not too interesting anyway. On the Mario Galaxy stage, the insides of the star shrooms have a fully textured and modeled interior, but they cannot be normally seen without camera clipping. Then, the Great Cave Offensive. There is a floor underneath one of the lava waves, but it is never uncovered. Additionally, one of the crystal bunches continues through a wall which can't be seen either. Yeah, so very small details, and just stuff like, you know, they probably added, it sounds like, just to make sure the game, like, you can't just see like holes in the geometry of the levels and stuff like that. So admittedly not what I thought they were going to share with us. I thought it was going to be like, oh, hey, you zoom in on this in the background of like the battlefield stage, and there's like a, you know, an icon, like somebody drew a penis on it or something like that, you know? Like, obviously not literally, but you get the idea. Just like cool details in the background, but doesn't appear to be the case. But once again, I didn't look at the video of what they're showing here, so just the pictures they pointed out, and I figure, I mean, that's the most interesting stuff, I would have to assume, right? Now there's some oddities. In version 1.0.0 of the Spanish translation, the nameplate for the temple stage says La Cupside. I don't even know what the hell that is. I'm just gonna skip that one, honestly. Rob's broken expressions. Like with most fighters, Rob's facial expressions change depending on his current situation, such as stand by, hurt, grab, etc. Or at least they're supposed to. They work fine in modes that do not have battle intros before a match, but they can never be seen in traditional battles, meaning this bug has something to do with his model breaking during his intro animation. Honestly, I'm gonna be 100%. I didn't even know like I didn't even know Rob had any sort of like facial animations. I know that all of these things became a lot more pronounced in this game, Smash Ultimate, especially guys like Donkey Kong and stuff like that. Apparently there's Mumcar. Okay. Strangely, Mumcar is listed alongside a list of characters' names intended for the voices section of the sound test, despite not appearing anywhere else in the game, even as a trophy. Given that he is grouped together with Shulk, Dunban, and Ricky, it is possible he may have once been planned to appear as part of Shulk's final smash. Oh, I guess it's a Xenoblade Chronicles thing. I thought it was just some random like dude name that they just put in there. Although that in itself would be bizarre, as Mumcar is never, I'm definitely not pronouncing it correctly, Mumcar is never allied with Shulk at any point in Xenoblade Chronicles. Notably, while Mumcar is Metal Face's true identity, the latter has his own separate entry in the sound test, and is grouped alongside the rest of the bosses as opposed to the playable fighters. So, I mean, yeah, that's pretty much it for Wii U. Let's see if there's anything interesting as far as 3DS goes. So let's see here. Once again, there's a bunch of sub-pages. So there's prototype info, which was not available in the Smash for Wii U stuff. So there's some pretty cool stuff there, I'm sure. There's some bugs, unused text, unused parental controls. Apparently, you know, you could have blocked the parental controls, blocked the sharing feature. Yeah, I mean, Nintendo were really definitely super kid-friendly at this era, and you know, we're all about parents, you know, being able to control their kids' playtime and stuff like that, which isn't a bad thing. I think, you know, take it from me, I'm a freaking gooner when it comes to gaming, so I mean, I think parents, you know, it's not a big deal if they're involved more in, like, you know, limiting how often the kids play. I mean, usually though, like, you hear like, oh, they can play a game for an hour a day. I'm like, damn, dude, you can barely even you barely get even started at that point. I mean, at least let them have like 2 hours or something like that, you know what I mean? Especially if, you know, they're working hard, doing their studies, all that sort of stuff, but obviously I'm not a parent. Apparently there's PD Piranha text strings. It's a set of strings in the game's executables that contain Boss Pacoon, the internal name for PD Piranha. PD does not show up in this game or the Wii U version, making these strings quite suspicious. Let's be honest, man. I mean, it's probably just a leftover from the boss battles and Brawl, so I'm not even gonna humor this anymore. Apparently there's some unused model features, which once again, you're just going to have to check out yourself. They're pictures. Some miscellaneous stuff. So there's unused multi-man smash button. That's interesting. I've never played the 3DS version. So I'm surprised that they wouldn't have the multi-man smash in that game. The blue quit button after a match of multi-man smash used to be a button that took you to the character selection. Identically to how target blast and home run contest works, instead of out of the game altogether, which would have been more convenient, but for unknown reasons it was cut. So I guess it is in there, but it's just, I don't know, I guess it's just something like, oh, you know, you could go back to the menu and stuff all the way back to the main menu or something, I don't know. The Wii U version allows you to select your multi-man game code from the character selection screen, so it's possible the button was intended for this functionality. The use quit button, I feel like I'm too far in to just quit reading this one. The use quit button still has the same figure icon as the character select button instead of a more fitting one, suggesting that the button could have been changed late into development. The button can still be seen for a split second, seemingly randomly after choosing to quit any of the multi-man smashes modes after death/completion of the mode. So there's some unused trophy categories in this one as well, and there's the Final Smash and Smash Run categories. I don't know why they wouldn't be separated, but I don't know how many trophies they have. There's the series trophy categories, which is Ice Climbers, of course. Once again, that touch generation, that must be like a big thing in Japan or something. I can't really imagine what it would have been. There's Nintendogs, Street Pass Me Plaza, of all things. Tomodachi Life, like I said, it was also in Wii U as an unused trophy category. Wrecking Crew, Wii Sports Resort, Miiverse, and Pilot Wings. Some unused sounds such as Boss Battle, Tourney. That scared the shit out of me. So let's just keep going. Characters, as expected, many of the game's playable characters also have a number of audio clips which for whatever reason don't end up being used in the game. Note that for the characters who reuse voice files from previous Smash Bros. Games, all their unused audio in Brawl is also unused here with the exception of one of Meta Knight's. Thought it was going to tell us some unused characters, that would have been pretty cool. Some unused background music, of course. Miscellaneous sounds. And there's even some references to unused DLC. The DLC file references Pirate in the content list for the stages, grouped right after Super Mario Maker. This corresponds to Pirate Ship, a stage which was added as DLC in the Wii U version, but was never for the 3DS. Yeah, it's always interesting to me that like the 3DS had DLC. I don't know why. Like it's obviously like, you know, connects to the internet. It wasn't a big deal. It's just weird to me that my tiny little mind cannot process it, you know. But I don't know, it's I'm even just thinking of like, I think, I don't know, even the Fire Emblem games had like DLC and stuff like that. I think even like Fire Emblem Fates, like I think you had to buy both versions of the game or something like that to get like the final third path, which was completely DLC for the story. And I think since they shut down that service, a lot of people are like really pissed off that you'll never be able to actually play the true ending of that game unless they re-release Fates. And obviously Awakening was like one of the most popular in the series, so it seems weird that they haven't re-released those games at all. Honestly, I mean, if they have it, I don't think they'll have a 3DS service for like the Switch 2, which they could easily have, but I think it would be really cool if you know, they just kind of like remastered those games for like a non-portable experience, you know, so you could actually see Awakening and Fates and experience all that stuff, you know, on like a TV format, you know, and it actually looks pretty good. You know, they could actually add feet to the characters in Awakening. Can you imagine that? Because apparently that was something that they didn't have in the original Awakening, for Fire Emblem Awakening. Apparently there's also a directory labeled Subaru, which can be found in the motion folder grouped alongside the game's playable characters. It contains only a blank body folder inside. No other references to Subaru are known to exist in the files. as a Mii with the same name appeared in various previous Nintendo titles, and a many of them is referenced internally as 000. It is possible this character was imported as a template to test the Mii fighters during development. I see. There's Brawl sticker type leftovers. Just like in Brawl, every hitbox can be labeled as an arm, leg, head, body, etc. attack. This is used by Smash Run for the powers such as strong body and strong head, which increase damage dealt by certain type of attacks. That said, the 3DS and Wii U versions port over the entire type chart from Brawl, even though most of them aren't used by Smash Run powers or anything else. And that's about it. A little disappointing. I was hoping we could have at least seen some stuff about the, the ice climbers and, any data left over from them in the game and stuff like that, but is what it is, Alright, so in Smash Bros. Ultimate, everyone and everywhere is here. Even Disney, but not Waluigi. Yeah, I don't really, I guess it was like the stage, changing function. I can't remember the stage form or something like that, but some of them I understand. Some of them I don't really get. Like, I think it would, like, there's a lot of stages in here that are missing that would have just been really cool to have. Like the Pac Maze, that was something I was looking forward to seeing in Smash Ultimate, and I don't really remember why it was taken out. Never got to play on that stage ever. Honestly, it would have been cool if we had like the Icicle Mountain and I know a lot of people hate the Orbital Gate Assault from Smash, from Smash for Wii U. It was a Star Fox stage, and I think it was based off of Assault, like the game and stuff like that. And that would have been awesome to have. It was a cool stage, very big stage. I think they said it took like 9 months or a year to like complete or something crazy like that. So it's really sad to think that like it didn't even come back in this game. But a lot of people really hated it, and Pokefloats is a stage that my buddy Ray Cow would have really liked to play on and thought was really cool. I thought the concept of fighting on floating Pokemon's cool, but I thought the background was just something about it was, I wouldn't say unsettling, but it just I didn't like it at all. Let's see here. So there are unused assist parameters. Or parameters. I always say parameters, but it's parameters. Characters are various parameters to go unused, either due to their chance of happening being set to 0 or for other reasons. Alright, so Chef Kawasaki will drop one of a number of different food items before he leaves the battlefield after being spawned. Yeah, it just seems like it's all about, characters dropping stuff. There's even some unused World of Light maps. Alright, here we go. The Pipe Tower. This appears to be a debug room with 110 owl statues and a pipe. We'll get to that stuff later. With the ground theme, Super Mario Bros. Brawl as its background music. Speaking of that, they have like the, I never understood. So in Brawl, I think you guys may have seen it, right? They had the Super Mushroomy Kingdom, and they had like the World 1-1, and that returned in Ultimate as a stage, but for whatever reason it doesn't return the 1-2, like the underground variant that was in Brawl. You would like pick it randomly. Like all they had to do, if they didn't want the random element associated with it, just have them be separate stages in this game. But they don't have the ground version of this game, the underground version I should say. But they still have the 1-1 version instead of the 1-2. Really lame. I gotta say, like, I don't even understand what the purpose of not including it would be. Which, I don't know. Only Sakurai and a few Bandai Namco, Japanese developers would know why that is. See here, there's Big Bottle, Magma Base, and there's the unused boss stage Final Smash boards. All of the boss stages were updated to include Final Smash position data. This data is normally used to determine where certain Final Smashes occur when they are used on a given stage. As it is impossible to access a Final Smash in a boss battle, this data goes unused on these stages, and it is unclear why it was added after the game's release. which was added in version 4. All of the boss stages use the same values for this data except for the marked stage, which differs from the others. So it sounds like at some point they were planning on helping the players out in the boss battles. Probably was going to be able to get the final smash, and then you would have been able to hit the boss with the final smash. And they probably were like, alright, well, this isn't going to work for, you know, a good chunk of the final smashes, you know? Like, how are you going to use Luigi's final smash to suck him up in the vacuum and do damage, you know what I mean? Unused character-related data. Boss Giga Bowser. The version of Giga Bowser used for his boss fight is unlike any other boss in the game, as it is internally classified as a fighter. Probably something, you know, like left over from, you know, his final smash in Wii U and Brawl and stuff like that. Let's see here. He has a placeholder data for camera content, a Kirby copy ability, a final smash, a result screen, and even alternate costumes. This seems to be a leftover from when it was originally appeared as Bowser's final smash in Brawl 4, like I said. This is implied by Bowser and Giga Bowser's moves, making frequent calls for final smash data that is never used. Yeah, they kind of got rid of a lot of like the free, I don't know, I shouldn't say free forming, but like the smashes where the player had control over it. So, you know, obviously, like, you know, you used to be able to just play as Giga Bowser for like, you know, 30 seconds as his final smash instead of it being a reference to, I think, like Yoshi's Island or Baby Mario or something like that. I can't remember what the name is of the particular game, but where Bowser's just you playing him in the background. He has like the red radical that you know, press, and then you'll punch, you know, the screen, and anybody who is inside that radical with your fist, all the way, you know, all in the background. Then of course there's also, you know, the characters, all the Star Fox characters used to have a landmaster, and you could just drive it freely and shoot people, fly high to the top of the screen and kill them that way, all that good stuff. And, you know, they replaced it with, you know, the ones where you had to be right next to them and hit them with the air wings. Or R wings. Jeez, I just can't pronounce anything correctly today. And there's just a few others that are like that. I thought it was really cool. It got replaced in Smash for Wii U anyway, but I thought Pit's final smash, where he had he would ask, you know, Palutena to send like the little warrior guys to help him, and they were just kind of smashing into the players. I thought that was a pretty cool one, especially when, you know, Pit's yelling before it activates. But it was really annoying to have to deal with when you were on the receiving end. So by hacking Giga Bowser into the match as a fighter, it's revealed that he largely functions as a normal fighter. However, he can't run, shield, or grab, nor can he use down tilt, neutral area, or down aerial. Notably, Giga Bowser has 95 units of knockback based armor, preventing him from being launched until very high percentages. This is similar to how he worked in Melee, but significantly stronger. Some glitches are introduced, as many of Giga Bowser's animations have been removed, resulting in frequent T-poses. This can also be seen in the results screens. Honestly, I think it would have been, it'd just be pretty cool if like Giga Bowser just finally became his own character in this. I mean, he's like a, I think a Smash original character that first appeared in Melee, but I don't know, I just think it would be really cool to finally just give him like a playable character slot, you know? Similar to like how Ridley eventually became like a playable character after being a boss. Something that always used to irritate me, like I used to have a buddy named Jor and stuff like that, and you know, we had a big falling out. He's actually kind of a huge pussy, and I'm not gonna get into that, but anyway, so he kept, like, I remember when like people were speculating about the DLC in this game, right? And they were, everybody kept saying, you know, oh, Waluigi could be in here, he could be, you know, DLC. And it's like, you know, assist trophies have been DLC in the past. Okay, well, Mac. And for whatever reason, people would not look at the logic of the situation. Little Mac was a trophy, like an assist trophy in Brawl. But then in Wii U, he was a character. He didn't have an assist trophy anymore. So it wasn't in the same game that he was an assist trophy and, you know, a playable character. And that's the thing that I kept telling, you know, this Jor guy, like, look, you shouldn't say that. It doesn't hold the logic. And he kept saying, nah, man, it does, yada yada. And lo and behold, Waluigi was never made into a playable character. That's something too. Let's just be 100% honest. Like, the next game, something that could set itself apart from like Ultimate is literally just including Waluigi in there. Like, they announced the game, and right at the end, they show Waluigi in the trailer. Like, that's gonna get a shit ton of people talking. Yeah, that's what I thought. Talk to the hands, sister. But I don't know. Let's continue on with this. So, before version 2, winning as Giga Bowser outside of a team battle goes to the results screen briefly and crashes the game. But prior to version 4, exiting a match early with Giga Bowser also crashed. It's not meant to be playable, so I mean, it's obviously one of those things where, you know, certain things are just not going to work properly. But it kind of reminds me of like in Master Hand, the glitch in Melee that lets you play as Master Hand. So I think it's, I can't remember the exact details, but you need to be in Melee mode. Someone, I think player 1 needs to pick a character and press start or something like that at the same time that someone, player 3 in particular for some reason, they have to like press a specific button while they're choosing a name, and somehow that just defaults the game into the stage select. And when you press you know, select the stage, it has to be a specific one, usually one that doesn't move. And you know, player 3 I believe is playing as Master Hand. Because the game never actually picked a character for player 3, it defaults to the, you know, default character in the list of like internal order, which would be like, you know, let's say 0-0, right? And interestingly enough, the character that is Master Hand in Melee, so you got to play as Master Hand. And you know, it was really cool that you could do that. And, but obviously there was a lot of ways it could crash the game. I think, you know, there would be like no character on the end screen, or it could even crash. Simply because obviously he was never meant to be playable, and like, you know, even his moves like are just not mapped in the same way you would play as like a normal character, I believe. And half his moves aren't even mapped to the controller. It reminds me of like, you know, Shaolin Monks, where you can play as the boss characters, but you can only use a fraction of their moves because the other ones are just, you know, random button presses, so you don't work in the same exact way as like a regular character would play. And I'm sure, you know, in the obviously there's lots of glitches, all sorts of issues that arise from that because they're never meant to be playable in a normal form. And that's just how it is in a lot of video games and stuff like that. There's placeholder fighter slots. 30 placeholder character slots existed in the files of the character selection screen at launch before being removed in the version 2 update. There are also a slightly smaller 16 placeholder character slots in the files for the World of Light and in the attack log parameter. As downloadable fighters are released, the smaller list is often edited, though not in a consistent manner. So, Piranha Plant and Joker each took a placeholder slot from the World of Light and the attack log parameter. Hero and Banjo did not take any of the slots. So those were probably, so obviously Piranha Plant and Joker were planned. Hero and Banjo were probably not as planned as, you know, the other two. Terry did not take a slot, though the update that added him removed 2 slots. Violet did not take any of the placeholder slots. Min Min and Steve each took a slot. Sephiroth and Pyra and Mithra did not take any of the slots. So it sounds like a lot of these characters may not have been planned for initial release. So it's always cool to see, you know, like, to make another example, like obviously a lot of people were pissed off in Street Fighter X Tekken that all the DLC was pretty much there from the get-go, but you had to just buy it to essentially unlock it on the disc. It was already all there, but you literally had to pay just to be able to use the stuff that was already inside the game. So it's pretty cool that majority of these characters that were DLC, they weren't even, you know, there was just weren't even, you know, even like any idea of them being in the game at that point, you know what I mean? It's very small, you know, maybe just like a picture here or two. Other than, you know, the first 2, which were Piranha Plant and Joker, you know. Obviously, you know, it makes sense that they had some data on the disc. But it does make you wonder, who were these characters, you know, the 30 slots, you know, who were they going to be? You know, obviously there was the reference, you know, like the people thought like you know, the chorus kids or something were going to be in it. Let's see, I think there were some other characters. I just can't remember off the top of my head, you know, the lead characters that were supposed to be in. And here's another example of my assist trophy thing. Springman is an assist trophy, and because of that, Min Min took his slot as the fighter for Arms, which there's another game that I was talking about, just something that was like, oh man, this is gonna be awesome, cool. And, you know, my brother Topher is telling me all about this great stuff. Then I played it, and like, at least I didn't buy it. I played it off of his Switch, but it was just one of those games that was hyped up dramatically and just kind of, not bad, but not the greatest either. Ditto material exists for Final Smashes. That's a Pokemon that can, you know, it's the assist trophy that turns into, like, I think it's the character that summoned them. So he has data for Final Smashes, victory pose models, and entrances, but Ditto cannot do any of those. That'd be pretty broken if Ditto could just do, like, you know, Final Smashes out of nowhere. Even if Ditto breaks a Smash Ball, it'll be given to the player who had summoned Ditto. Fighter movies. A reference to what seems to be a leftover from the fighter ending movies used since Melee. Yeah, unfortunately it doesn't seem like that's a thing anymore. But, you know, it's trophies, no more fighter movie, you know, things. Like just the 2-second, you know, clips and stuff like that. You know, it would have been cool to have them in, just because it's the ultimate experience, you know what I mean? There's unused Classic Mode parameters. The Classic Mode route parameter files for Pokemon Trainer and Mega Man each contain data specifying a Stamina HP value of 120, but are set to have Stamina Mode disabled. This implies that these fighters' Classic Mode routes may once have been planned to use Stamina battles, as other fighters do not include this data at all. In the final game, before DLC, Ryu was the only fighter whose route uses Stamina battles with an HP value of 150. DLC characters were also later added who use this mode as well. So obviously, you know, like, I'm surprised Ken doesn't have it either. They probably want to differentiate him from, you know, Ryu's Classic Mode and stuff like that. But the idea is, if you don't know, every fighter has, like, in Classic Mode, a set path. So it's like 6 fights and there's a theme to them all. So like Bowser, for example, he fights everyone that has like a red outfit or a red look or something like that because of Mario, and then eventually he fights Mario at the end, I think. Ike, you know, he fights the black clad warriors. So because of that, you know, obviously because of his reference of the Black Knight, and then Dr. Mario's another one that I already did, and it's like every character he fights is supposed to be like a reference to the viruses, you know, it's like Kirby, there's a red, blue, and red version that you have to fight all in one stage. There's a reference to the viruses. And I think it's called like Colorful Treatment Plan or something like that. So like it's not the craziest kind of stuff, but it is cool that like each character has their own individual stories, instead of it being like in the older games where it's like, hey, here's stage 1, you're fighting Mario Bros characters, so you can either have a team, a 1-on-3 with a giant, or, you know, a 2-on-2 with you know, any of the Mario Bros characters. Then stage 2 is the same thing. You know, you might have you know, you might be teaming with Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong to take on a giant Yoshi, or you might be having Yoshi as your ally against, you know, Diddy Kong and Donkey Kong. You know, just variants of that kind of stuff, but it's always like the same character series every single, you know, on specific stages. So it is really cool, this game. You know, that was something I was hyped for. They gave everybody their own individual Classic Mode. I mean, I was kind of deflated after I learned they won't have trophies, it's just the spirits. And I don't know, I did complete every single character, including the DLC's Classic Mode, but I'm kind of thinking about it in hindsight, why I did that, because, you know, I only did like maybe 10 or 20 at the absolute max, right, of like characters Classic Mode to unlock other characters. So I don't really know why I did that, like completed like all like 107 characters. Maybe I even see, I think it might be 107 stages. I can't remember how many characters there are anyway, but maybe I don't really know why I completed all the character Classic Mode things, but it was pretty cool. You know, everybody had their own stories, even though there's like no cutscenes, and there was a lot of reused bosses. But it would have been really cool if like they had a lot more of those characters that carry over from like Brawl's Subspace Emissary, like PD Piranha, Porky, I think. I forget if he returned or not as a final boss in this game, but if he didn't, he definitely should have. Even Ridley, you know, and Meta Ridley, like even though he's a playable character, I mean, having them return just to add that extra variety would have been pretty awesome. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. And we got like, I think just 10 boss characters. Most of them just have like Master Hand or Classic. Master Hand or Crazy Hand, I should say, as their final bosses in Classic mode. But I don't plan on obviously doing all Classic mode. Like, I'm not going to put you guys through that. And usually I only play like a select few, and it's too bad. I think like All-Star mode in this game, it's pretty much just like a, you know, multi-man melee thing. And I understand why they don't have that as like a full mode, because, you know, with all those characters, I mean, it takes like 15 minutes in like Brawl to get through an All-Star mode, and that's with me editing all the things in there, you know, editing out all the loading, editing out all the you know, the rest area, middle ground things and stuff like that, and it takes like 10 to 15 minutes, so it'd be like a 30-minute thing for each character if they had to do All-Star in the traditional sense of fighting each character one after the other type deal. So it was already pretty lengthy in Smash for Wii U as well. So I understand why it didn't return in its traditional format in this game, but that said, the only mode that kind of returned in that classic traditional format was Classic mode. So I don't know how many characters I'm going to play. I'm going to try and play as all the characters I enjoy playing as, even just to a slight degree, as well as all the characters that I've played up to this point. So like, after Brawl, I really don't care much for Fox. And even in Brawl, I didn't care for him too much outside of like the boss battle / Subspace Emissary. But like, I pretty much played every single game with him at this point. So I mean, I'm playing as Fox, you know, just to have the full collection, you know. And obviously there's going to be a whole bunch of characters, you know, I plan on playing as. But once again, I mean, even just having all of them having different routes adds more variety to the gameplay and bosses and stuff like that. So hopefully it gets you guys something to look forward to as far as that goes. But moving on, there's also some unused custom special move data. Inside every character's parameter file is data for 4 variations for each of their 4 special moves. This data would have been used if custom special moves had returned from the previous entry. While it is possible the custom moves were planned to return, it's most likely just a leftover, as the data for the extra special moves are zeroed out for almost every character. The only exceptions are Cloud, Joker, and Terry, all 3 of whom use the first 2 parameter variations and have a power-up that changes all of their special moves in the case of Cloud and Joker, or have an extra special move accessed with a command input in Terry's case. Boy, I'm blowing it here. By the way, the idea is that, yes, custom special moves carried over. However, there was clearly no plan to have them return. If they were, it was, you know, very, very early on. Which, you know, it would have been cool, but I don't know, I kind of don't really care too much for it, like I said earlier. It just kind of is what it is, but interesting that I feel like the fact that they had it for the DLC characters definitely means it was something that we're somewhat planning and fiddling with, and I'm pretty sure Smash Bros. Ultimate was literally like just built directly off of Smash for Wii U, which is why they look so similar, you know, have a lot more leftover things than most games usually. Kind of like how Virtual Pro Wrestling 2 was built, I mean, No Mercy was built directly off of Virtual Pro Wrestling 2. And I'm sure Brawl had to have been built off of like Melee, because they just look so similar, but I don't know, I'm getting into theorist territory there. There's leftover glide data. Pit, Dark Pit, Meta Knight, Charizard, and even Ridley all have glide data left over from Brawl and Smash 4, but Ridley's glide data is identical to Charizard, suggesting that Charizard was used as a base for Ridley. Makes sense. A lot of people hated Brawl for the gliding around the stage with Meta Knight and said he broke the game, because he just literally couldn't lose or something like that. I don't know how it works, but I think there's a whole bunch of videos based off of that. Unused attack properties. Min Min. Various strings related to Min Min's dash attack indicate that it was originally planned to be able to reflect projectiles, with a 1.5 times multiplier applied to both the damage and speed of the projectile reflected. The reflection effect would instead be repurposed for Min Min's up smash, which has a 1.8 times damage multiplier and 2 times speed multiplier. Pretty cool. The DLC characters are pretty broken in this game, I'm not gonna lie, but I guess the idea for that is you're paying for these characters, so they gotta be pretty broken, but some of them don't even resemble normal fighters anymore in the Smash series, you know what I mean? King K rules Gut Check Belly's super armor damage multiplier. That's a long one. King K rules Gut Check was intended to have him take damage. On frame 7 of Gut Check's counterattack, the game will request for a damage number. However, due to the parameter for the multiplier being 0, the damage will never actually occur. So I don't know if that was something that was overlooked, or if it was something like, hey, you're reflecting it and, you know, they just wanted to not have to take damage. Giga Bowser leftovers. Despite having neutral aerial and down aerial removed, landing lag values for these moves exist, with values of 54 and 95 respectively. I have no idea what the fuck that means. Curiously, these are changed from Brawl / Smash 4, where they had 45 frames of lagging lag each. Furthermore, leftovers for an angle able forward tilt exists, something that existed in previous titles but no longer functions in Ultimate. Additionally, Giga Bowser has leftover final Smash data from Smash 4. By hacking Giga Bowser as a playable character and activating a final Smash, the green flash transformation will begin, but nothing will happen, causing Giga Bowser to continually flash until a stock is lost. Jeez, he even lose a stock from that? Apparently the internal project name was Cross. So apparently it's Super Smash Bros. Cross. Okay. Interesting, interesting. Let's see here, we have some unused series names. Devil's Third, Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate, Jet Force Gemini, and Blast Corps are listed along other series in the game strings. However, no form of content from any of these series appear at all in the game. Devil's Third may have been cut due to legal issues with Nexon, who released Devil Third online for Windows or the game developers Valhalla Game Studios. Blast Corps and Jet Force Gemini are both rare developed Nintendo 64 console games, but the company and rights to all its original IPs are now owned by Microsoft. Makes sense. I thought Jet Force and Gemini was even available in the, it was like one of the first games available for the Nintendo Switch Online service. And I know they have Killer Instinct and Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie, but we really need to get that freaking Conker's Bad Fur Day on the Nintendo Switch Online, man. Come on. Come on. Come on. Alright, anyway. While there is content from the Monster Hunter series in the game, there is none from Generations Ultimate specifically. It isn't very obvious as to why this is amongst the series names. I mean, I guess they were planning to have something like that in there. Speaking of Rare, though, it's so sad that after Microsoft bought them out, they did absolutely jack poop with them, you know? I mean, they had Conker, Banjo-Kazooie. Yeah, I mean, those are the only big ones I know. Killer Instinct, obviously, was a big one, too. How do you have, like, one of the most notable 90s developers and just not do anything with them? That's definitely a Microsoft L move, I would say. I mean, they did remaster Conker's Bad Fur Day, and I think even to this day, it looks really good graphics-wise, and apparently it's supposed to be uncensored, and for some reason it was more censored than the original N64 released. Classic Microsoft L move there. And then Banjo-Kazooie just turned into like a cart game or something like that, where you collect, it was like nuts and bolts, and you collect like parts to upgrade your car for some reason, despite Banjo-Kazooie never really being anything like that, I guess. So I don't know what the deal was with that, when it was always traditionally a platformer. But I can't even think of anything else they really did. I think they recently released a Killer Instinct game, and like, I don't even think it was recent, it was like 2014 or something like that. So it wasn't really that recent. I think it came out around the time Mortal Kombat 10 did. There's some unused game title names. So, apparently there's a folder that contains all the game titles for each series. However, there's some unused titles included as well. Some of them might possibly explain some of the skipped new BGMs for the Mario series. These don't have any text associated with them, so it's only their internal game title. So apparently there was a song that was going to be in Paper Mario Sticker Star, Mario Golf 64, Mario Tennis 64, another Mario Tennis 64, Mario Party 10, Mario Party Star Rush, Mario Kart Advance, Mario Kart 7DS Advance, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, Donkey Kong Jr., Donkey Kong Jr. again, Donkey Kong 3, Diddy Kong Racing. That's also something that needs to be released on the Nintendo Switch Online. Apparently, I can't remember which one came out first. It was either Crash Team Racing or Diddy Kong Racing that did the actual adventure mode racing thing, which is pretty awesome. See your Legend of Zelda Spirit Tracks, Yoshi Woolly World 3DS, Star Fox Command, Star Fox 64 Command, interesting. Fire Emblem Thracia 776. I wish they just had all the Fire Emblem games available to play. I might not like all of them, but it would just be so cool if I could play all of them. You know what I'm saying? But at least, I mean, like, you got the online thing, so, like, I could play, I think it's the Blazing Sword or the Binding Blade. I think it's Blazing Sword that has Roy in it. Something that really irritates me, they translated Fire Emblem Shadow Dragon, right? And people are saying, oh, well, they can't do that for Mother 3, you know, having to do that for an entire game like that, you know how much money that costs. They're fan translations. This is a big company. You can definitely translate Mother frickin' 3 and re-release it onto the Game Boy Advance thing. Like, come on, man. Stop being a Nintendo dick licker, you know what I'm saying? Nintendo has the power to they could send like 3 dudes to do it and just translate the game for English release, man. Even if it's like requires, you know, a bunch of other like territories and stuff like that. Like, I get it. But like, come on, man. Like, you're telling me for a second that they couldn't do that, you know, that they wouldn't be able to translate all that stuff, you know, for like all the countries they need to? They do it for all these games. They have people, I'm sure, specifically for that. And you're telling me they can't just have somebody do it for like 6 months at most to just translate the games? Like Mother and all the other Fire Emblems and stuff like that. Like Roy's dad's game, right? Like, I don't think that's going to ever come to the Game Boy Advance because I think it was Japanese exclusive. And I think that's the one that has Lynn and I can't remember his name. It's like not Elliot, it's not Elios. It's Hector, that's who it is. It was like a 3-piece game and stuff like that with like 3 major protagonists. I think Ellie Wood, which is Roy's dad, was the one that everybody liked the least, interestingly enough. But man, oh man, I mean, just to think there's just like a bunch of Fire Emblem games, and they even had a whole bunch of like the ones that they remastered that were only released on like 3DS and you know, other handheld consoles and stuff like that. And it's just like, man, we're getting some of them. Like I said, with Roy's game is on GBA Advance or GBA, and then I don't think it's out yet, but they did showcase that they were gonna release Path of Radiance for the GameCube. That's exclusive to the Switch 2 thing, and that's probably the big thing I would want to Switch 2 for, right? It's just the GameCube collection, so I could actually, you know, play these things legally. That said, though, you know, obviously there's no Wii thing. I mean, we might get a Wii thing for Smash 2 or for Switch 2. You would think we would, because I think the Wii isn't really all that much stronger than the GameCube, and they still have the motion controls, I believe, for Switch 2, obviously, so you think that'd be a no-brainer. And obviously, if they did do that, you would also get to have access to Radiant Dawn. I know the Tellia Saga was probably like the least popular. I think people say Path of Radiance is like one of the best games in the series, like die-hard Fire Emblem fans, but I think most players never really experienced either that or Radiant Dawn. I mean, imagine if they remastered it into one, you know, thing, the Tellia Saga. That would be delicious. But I mean, it's probably never ever going to happen because those were like the lowest selling in the West like of pretty much almost any Nintendo game ever released. So it's not likely to ever happen, unfortunately. But I mean, at least we get to play them in the Nintendo Switch Online service. Then there's Fire Emblem Binding Blade. Then there's Robot Block. I don't even know what the hell that would be referencing. I guess it's just Rob stuff. Animal Crossing Plus, Animal Crossing City, Animal Crossing City Crossing Wild, Animal Crossing Amiibo Festival. Apparently that's a really terrible game. Sonic Rush, Mega Man 6, Mega Man 4, 5, and 6. Castlevania, Castlevania Judgment, Castlevania Arcade, Castlevania Harmony of Despair, Sky Kid, Sky Kid DX, Sky Kid DX, Yokai Dochikui, Dig Dog. Man, how did that not have Dig Dog in here? X Series, Tamagotchi Life, Tamagotchi Life 2, Tamagotchi Life 2 Life, Snipper Clip Series. That was something that was kind of cool when the Switch first came out. And then there's Real Bout. Speaking of stuff that first came out, I mean, I can't believe one of the titles that Nintendo's advertising for the Switch 2 that's like, you know, supposed to be a huge big deal. It's just literally like just wheelchair basketball. And it's supposed to like show off the mouse capability of the system. It's like, dude, like there's no characters here. It doesn't even look that interesting, but literally just wheelchair basketball or like soccer or something like that, man. Like that's their big IP they're trying to push, you know, as like a tech demo thing for the mouse controls. Speaking of which, a tech demo having to pay for it, which is stupid. You know, it really sucks. Is apparently Reggie Fils-Aimé used to be like the president of Nintendo America before Doug Bowser came in, and you know, he had a really good relationship with President Iwata, who unfortunately is no longer with us. You know, after him, Miyamoto took over and stuff like that. But apparently, Reggie Fils-Aimé, he had to plead with Nintendo of Japan to be able to, you know, release Wii Sports free alongside the Wii, because he knew it was going to help sell the console. You know, to have that pack-in game and show off what the Wii was all about at the same time. And, you know, honestly, that was one of the greatest decisions in hindsight, but apparently there's not up to do that anymore because the Switch 2 tech demo you have to pay like $10 for. Why am I paying money for a tech demo? Like, go to hell, Nintendo. Like, what the hell do you think you're doing? That's what I mean. Corporate greed. They're on that high horses here, folks. They, you know, they just think they can get away with what they want and stuff like that. I don't know, I just think that's lame. You have to pay for the tech demo, you know what I mean? Like, obviously most people aren't going to play with it, but it's literally more so than any tech demo. It's literally built to, like, show you, like, hey, here's what's going on in the console. Here's things to help you further along, and what this does, what this feature on the console does, and all this other stuff, like interactive, walking around, talking to people, and other people on the thing. And you have to pay for it. And I bet that Doug Bowser guy, I guess he was, like, a president or, like, a high... you know, a CEO of like EA, and that kind of says it all. Like, he's not going to be fighting for our rights or the fights of, you know, fight for the rights of every man, you know, in America and stuff like that. You know, not like Reggie Fils-Aimé. And I don't know. I mean, Miyamoto, you know, it sounds like he has a lot of issues with a lot of people. He's kind of like an Iron Fist kind of guy type of deal where, like, you know, if he doesn't like the idea, it's the way he wants and the way he'll go. That's what he did to the Paper Mario series. He didn't want any new characters in that series, I guess. He didn't want, you know, any unique Toad models or Koopa models anymore, you know, to differentiate all these characters. He just wanted regular generic Toads with no personality, I guess. Which sucks. Like, he even hated the idea of Mario games having a story anyway. Like, yes, gameplay is king. I agree with him on that. At the same time, though, some games thrive and are much better because of story modes. You know, of the story. You know what I mean? Let's see here, so anything else interesting here? We have some unused Mii data. Who gives a shit about that? There's some oddities, so there's individual Mii fighter victory themes. Since all three Mii fighters types are defined as separate fighters in the game's data, they each have a code to have unique victory themes. However, in their parameter files, all three are only directed to use the same victory music file, leaving this functionality unused. Wonder why. Charizard victory theme. Charizard has his own victory theme like in Smash 4. While it's technically still used by the Fire Dragon itself, the theme is identical to the other Pokemon victory themes. Pokemon Trainer, Squirtle, and Ivysaur all use the same theme, indicating that Charizard's victory theme could be an early development left over before Charizard was added back to the Pokemon Trainer. Sand's glowing blue eye. In the texture of the Sand's mask, which you can use on the Mii fighters, there's an unused space for his blue glowing eye, and there's another for the glow effect similar to the Gaster Blaster's eye, which have this trait. It was probably going to be visible, but then dropped for some reason. Yeah, I never really understood that either. Music quality oddities. There are higher quality versions of each song beyond what the file header suggests. Only some segments of each song are actually stored in higher quality, and they are not fully available in the higher quality. Nothing in the game points to these versions of the music, and this oddity doesn't happen with any of the DLC music tracks. Some tracks in the Joker DLC have remixes. These remixes have the original song stored in their file, but are never actually mentioned in the file header. Mr. Game & Watch's down smash typo. In the game's internal code, hitboxes have certain effects that define what visual effects should play when they hit a character. If no special effect is used, the effect is listed as collision. However, the sweet spot of Mr. Game & Watch's down smash is instead has its effect listed as collision normal, a typo. Normally, the move buries opponents, which uses its own effect, so this is not seen. However, if the move hits an opponent who is unable to be buried, no visual effect plays at all. Instead, the one associated with collision normal does. I remember the big thing with Mr. Game & Watch was in pre-release, you know, like the trailer or whatever. They were showing like his new upgraded move animations, and one of them was a Native American with like a feather in his head and stuff like that. And like somebody said, like, hey, this is offensive to Native Americans, and this is offensive to Native Americans. And then they put up some statement saying, oh yeah, well we understand this, and we were already in the midst of like changing it. It's like, no you weren't, dude. Why the hell would you, it was like a completely new animation of the game. Why the hell would you put that in there if you're going to just change it anyway? So, you know, I understand there are times, like there are definitely times where I can 100% understand why people would find stuff offensive. But like there's definitely just time, like that to me just screams either like, you know, you're definitely taking offense just for the sake of it and you're being sensitive, or it's just like, hey, I'm going to say this because I know that if I do, you know, they'll bend to my will type thing. It's like, come on, dude. You're offended by like a freaking feather or like a, what is it? Like, you know, just like the old Native American dress, right? Like, what is there even to be offended by? That's just the way they used to dress. It's not like he's even has like a cowboy or Indian thing that he's fighting against. It's just, he has a torch, and he's in a Native American file. It's literally referencing an old game. But some people just take things too far. So now he's like one of the few animations where there's just like nothing special with his other than the face. And it would have been just a lot cool. It's not the biggest deal. So I mean, it's one of those things where it's so small that like remove it just in case somebody is offended, because it's not a big deal in the grand scheme of things. But just the fact that it happened in the first place just seems so silly to me. It's kind of one of those like people being offended by everything type thing. Unseen Minecraft world blocks. So there's just like a texture sheet for a bunch of glitched out blocks that are apparently supposed to appear on the Minecraft stage, but you know, so many of them didn't. Boy. Let's see here. That's about it as far as Ultimate goes, honestly. But we still got a little bit of time here, so you know what, folks? Because I'm just that guy. You know, we got about 10 minutes left. I'm going to check out the prototype data, and might be a lot of it though, so we might have to save it for later things there. See how long it is. Doesn't seem to be too much data though. So, for the pre-release for Smash Bros. Ultimate, we had some scrapped characters. For the base roster, there was someone called Deuces Decidui. Apparently, in an interview in Nintendo Dream, Sakurai revealed that Decidui was almost chosen to represent Generation 7 of Pokemon as a playable character, but Incineroar was chosen instead, as Sakurai had a desire of creating a character with a professional wrestler-based moveset. So I guess that's why I can't really, I don't even know who that is. I guess it's a Pokemon. There's another L card. Sakurai stated in an interview that once it was decided to add a Castlevania character to the series, Alucard was a highly requested character and was very popular. However, Sakurai claimed he had chosen Simon and Richter as the Castlevania fighters over Alucard due to fans preferring the battle mods. Thus, Alucard became an assist trophy, likely as a compromise. And something that's interesting is Echo Fighters were never a thing, like the actual title of it, until Ultimate. And once that became a thing, like Echo Fighters and stuff like that, everybody loved the idea, you know? It's like, oh, we get an extra character, you know, just because they're based off the characters. Before that, they were called clone characters. Everybody was like, even though it was the same function of like, hey, we get to reuse this character model and assets and just add a few things on there, because the base fighter's already there, we can just add some different elements to them, like Mario and Dr. Mario, Marth and Roy, right? People bitched and said, oh, well, I would rather not have any clone characters and have one unique character. That's not really how it worked. But once they added the Echo Fighters and gave them that kind of name, now suddenly, you know, everybody started loving it. You know what I mean? It's just weird in that sense. There's also characters from Xenoblade Chronicles 2 and ARMS, according to Masahiro Sakurai. He said that multiple characters from Xenoblade Chronicles 2 and ARMS were considered to be added into the base game, but were not included due to development being completed prior to the announcement of both games in January of 2017. While they would receive representation of some kind, spirits and Mii Fighter outfits for both series, as well as music in the case of Xenoblade Chronicles 2 and Springman appearing as an assist trophy for ARMS in the base game, both games would eventually see playable representation in Fighter Pass Volume 2, with Pyra and Mithra from Xenoblade Chronicles 2 and Min Min from ARMS both included within it. Then we have some DLC characters. There's Slime and other Dragon Quest heroes. Sakurai said in an interview that if he could not use the hero as a playable Dragon Quest character, he would have chosen Slime. But this went the other way around due to Sakurai gaining the rights to Hero. Additionally, he wanted the 8 alternate costumes for Hero to be actual characters rather than recolors, but could not do so due to time constraints. He got pretty close. I mean, there's like 4 different characters and each one just has like a color palette swap. So he was pretty close, and you know, I think that's pretty awesome. Too bad he couldn't finish his vision on that though. Then there's Ninjara. When it came down to who will be the ARMS fighter, Sakurai mentioned that he considered either Min Min or Ninjara. Interestingly, Ninjara was my brother's favorite character from ARMS, so I feel bad he couldn't get the character he wanted. However, he chose Min Min instead due to the request from the game's creator, so that's interesting. Min Min, I don't know why, always reminds me of ramen noodles. But I think she has like probably the coolest look of any of the characters in the game personally. Rex. At one point in development, Rex was set to fight alongside Pyra and Mithra in a similar way to the Ice Climbers, but Rex was later removed due to technical issues with the implementation of the idea. I thought Rex was the assist trophy in the no, he was the costume for the Mii, so it's interesting they would have added him. And I think he was like the main protagonist of Xenoblade Chronicles, I thought, if I remember correctly. One of the issues was how complex the designs of Pyra and Mithra were. Another issue was getting both characters to move at the same time, which the development team found impossible to do. Similarly, it was too difficult to dub Rex as the main fighter with Pyra and Mithra behind him, thus ultimately leading to Rex being delegated to a small role. I think he might show up in like their final smashes, but I can't quite remember. Heihachi Mishima. During Mr. Sakurai Presents Kazuya, Sakurai confirmed that Heihachi Mishima, who was previously considered as a possible fighter in Super Smash Bros. 4, was nearly chosen to be the Tekken fighter in Smash Bros. Ultimate. Instead, he chose Kazuya as he thought that because Kazuya has the Devil Gene, there was a better potential moveset for Kazuya than Heihachi. I get that 100%. I'd say Heihachi is definitely like the mascot. Him and Yoshimitsu are like, Yoshimitsu and King are like the 3 probably biggest characters from Tekken, I would argue. As far as like the most recognizable and stuff like that. And iconic to Tekken itself. And I think with Kazuya though, like obviously he's probably the most popular protagonist, right? In the first 2 games. Like he's definitely more popular than what Jin was, because he has like the good and evil thing kind of going for him, and now he's just kind of like a villain at this point, pretty much. You know, maybe you could argue anti-hero because he's out for himself. But you know, I don't think Kazuya was a bad choice at all, right? The home menu icon. What the hell would I want to read about that? There's some character preview videos, and then there's an early battlefield design. And I guess it's different from the original, the one that appears in the game, you know, the final version, and it seems like the stage was simply ported from Smash Bros. Or Wii U with some small differences. There were some early stance designs, and quite honestly, I mean, that's about it. You know, like I said, I'll link to the pages down below. You know, if you want to check out all the extra details and the pictures of things that I obviously can't, you know, show on this, you know, playthrough video for obvious reasons. You know, just all check the description below and you'll see, you know, for Smash for Wii U, Smash for 3DS, Smash Bros. Ultimate, there's a whole bunch of pages on each one that I didn't go over. A lot of stuff, you know, audio files, pictures, like I said. If you want to check those out, description below. You know, just trying to get that information out there for you fellas, but... Jeez, I hate that freaking visual effect on my screen. I don't know how to fix that. What a jerk. Good thing he's an idiot. Doesn't realize I already have all the spirits available. Alright, we're about to get another new character. Just gotta take out Mr. Sandman here, so... My guess is this is gonna be Little Mac. Pretty interesting too that they have like the sleep thing outside there, but... It doesn't really affect me because obviously, I don't really need to go out there. So it's kind of like a weird, useless feature in this stage in particular. But yeah, and this... Spirits is kind of cool. I would have preferred... It's one of those things where it feels like it's tacked on. I would have preferred if it was just, you know, fight after fight after fight after fight. I mean, this mode kind of just reminds me of the event battles from, like, the previous games. That, you know, where there's just, like, some special stipulation and stuff like that in the fights. Which isn't bad. And I like the world map and all that other stuff. Yep, it was, in fact, Lil Mac. Alright. This is going to be awesome. I love Lil Mac. He's one of my favorites. He's probably my number 2 guy. But, what was I going to say? Yeah, so the event battle mode, that's kind of how it feels. And it's kind of like Mario Soccer Battle League for me. I have, like, an analogy for, like, every small detail when it comes to the stuff in this video, right? And it's kind of like Battle League where, like, it's not as severe as Battle League. You know, because like in this game it's like a cool mode and it's kind of like similar to stickers and stuff like that, but like you really have to, especially in later fights, you have to apply certain spirits and stuff like that to be able to have not just a fair fight, but to be able to progress in any way. Like the high win ones, there's absolutely no way you can win those without the specific you know, spirits put on your character and stuff like that. And it's kind of like I just want to fight one guy right after the other, right? It's just, you know, I'm cutting out all the things of you having to see me like consistently change my stuff, you know, my stats around and stuff like that, because it's not very interesting. But in Battle League, you know, it's definitely more tagged on, and that's a Switch Mario Soccer if you're not sure. Huge failure, by the way. But like they have this tacked on Battle Gear mode, and it allows you to like edit, you know, put on like a helmet, so, or like a hat or something like that, that allows you to edit the character, you know, stats and stuff like that, you know, so higher defense, higher attack power, you know, and it has, you know, body plates, leg plates, and, you know, it's aesthetic, you know, to it as well, you know, to kind of differentiate your character from, you know, once you would play online. But that was very tacked on. It was lame. It was very clear. It's just like, hey, we need some sort of extra mode tacked on just so people, you know, they have something to do, right? And I think that was one of the reasons why Battle League failed. And another reason why it failed was, you know, they had that online, that was cool, but you know, you couldn't do 4-on-4 online battles. That was kind of the main reason why me and all my friends and, you know, family just dropped off, because you can only have 2-on-2 battles. And I guess I get it, you know, probably a difficult thing for Nintendo to have to implement with all those people, you know, 8 people potentially being able to play online all at once, which I don't even think they do for Smash 4. But at the same time, like, come on, don't have like 4-on-4 soccer if you're not going to do that for online, you know what I mean? And on top of that, the arenas. Like, it seemed cool at first, like, oh, you pick half a court, the other person picks half a court. Once again, it doesn't really amount to anything. It's just kind of lame. So I usually just end up picking, like, you know, the same 2 halves so I can theoretically play on the stages, and they're all just really lame anyway. Very generic, nothing that really stands out about them, unfortunately. And I don't know, I think that was kind of the big reasons why Battle League failed. Well, that and the fact that they had only 10 characters in a 5-on-5 soccer video game as the base roster. They didn't even have Daisy there, man. I mean, that just kind of showed everybody that, like, they didn't care about this game. It was just, here's a, you know, it's not a full base experience with add-ons. It's like, here's a half-ass experience. Have fun with it because we're going to give you the rest of the game later on. And it was the most disappointing release that we were very hyped for at the time. But thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed, make sure to like and subscribe. Check out next week's episode on Nintendo Tuesday, but above all else, please remember to have a nice day.